I'm going to call this meeting to the Board of Education to order at 7:16 p.m. With an apology to the audience. We went over in closed session, but needed to give time to the items that were there and didn't make that appear on time. So I take responsibility for that, and I'm very sorry. Please call the roll.
Find a pen. Hold on. Yeah. Okay. Ms. Pearson?
Present.
Mr. Rollins?
Here.
Ms. Mohammed?
Here.
Mrs. McCulloch?
Here.
Mr. Siegel?
Here.
Mr. Connor?
Here.
Ms. Stanford? With 6 present, 1 absent, we have a quorum.
Thank you. As we start each board meeting, we like to remember that the mission of the school, Rockford Public Schools, is to collaboratively engage all students in first-class education for a changing world. And before we go any further, thank you, Connor Childers. He's working behind the scenes to produce the board's broadcast via YouTube, live stream, and Comcast Channel 20. I also would like to welcome the Superintendent's Advisory Committee, Student Advisory Committee, Student Representative Jay Gupta from Auburn. Thank you for being with us again. And I'm now going to turn the microphone over to, oh, you know what? We need to go back and take a moment of silence followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, trying to make up for the fact that you had to wait and then I skipped over a very important moment, so thank you. I'm going to turn the floor over to Mr. Dodson, and we're going to have a quick conversation here, and it's yours.
I can kick it off as we turn it over to Earl Dotson Jr., our Chief of Communications.
I was going to turn it over to you.
Okay.
See, look at you.
Who's catching that ball?
Thank you, Ms. McCulloch. I will now defer to Superintendent Dr. Aaron Jarrett.
We'll just keep going back and forth. Mrs. McCulloch, our board president, came to me and I came to Earl Dotson Jr. About the idea of using some time in our board meeting to do 2 things every day, or every time we have a board meeting. One would be to elevate student voice, and the other would be to elevate positive things that are happening in our district. So Earl and his team will be reviewing materials that we generate in the 205 Vibe to find a appropriate length format, as well as working with Dr. Brunson and our equity and inclusion team to continue to elevate students that we are listening to and elevating their voice. So anything you would like to add, Mr. Dotson Jr.?
No, sir, that was very eloquently said. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And we'll start that at the next meeting, just kind of a little, because I don't know how often we all look at all the videos that we have on our Vibe, but more so, especially with COVID, I know we haven't all been in the schools as much as we might have been, so it'll give us a chance to contact and touch base with students, which is what we all got into this for, right? All right, we're now at the petitions and communications portion of our meeting, where we invite the public to make comments. The Illinois School Code requires that there is a time at regular and special board meetings for public comment. Board Policy 2.230 governs the board, and the board will not respond to comments at this time. If it is appropriate, you will be contacted in a timely manner by staff in response to your questions. Each speaker is allowed no more than 2 minutes to address the board. It is not appropriate to address individual board members or individual administrators or to discuss matters that would otherwise be confidential in such an open meeting. 2 names will be called at one time, the one whose turn it is to speak and the one who will follow. When you are the second person, please feel free to come to the front and sit in a vacant chair. That way we're ready to go, and so we can devote the maximum amount of time to public comment. If you look to your left, there is a clock. On the left side of the clock is the time you have for your speaking, and on the right, the 30 minutes is for all public comment. We thank you for your interest, and we thank you for your cooperation with our guidelines. This evening we have 4 speakers, and the first one is Kathy Madison. And I think you get to turn the mic on.
Is this good?
Yes,
Okay.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Kathy Madison. Thank you for this opportunity to speak. I'm a graduate of RPS 205, as are my children. I speak tonight to propose a solution that addresses the learning loss that RPS 205 students have experienced during the pandemic, especially severe for students of color. My proposal is a mentoring program for students of color in middle school by the students of color in high school. Being mentored by students of color would give middle school students the benefits of in-person learning by someone who looks like them, enforcing the importance of education. For the high school mentors, the benefits could include an aspiration of becoming a teacher and perhaps enrollment in the Pathways program. Being a mentor should come with some financial compensation, another benefit to a high school student. Payment for their work would demonstrate to the mentors its value. Funds could be drawn from RPS 205's pandemic grants. This program could take place during school, after school, or during summer school. And even elementary schools could use a simple peer-to-peer mentoring program by inviting 5th grade students of color into younger grades to read together, help with math skills, or whatever the teacher suggests. Such mentoring programs would benefit all ages with additional learning opportunities, increasing confidence, emphasizing the importance of education, and perhaps introducing teaching as a career. Thank you for considering this proposal.
Thank you, and thank you for the time to bring that forward to us. All of the speakers have asked to be contacted by the district, and it is so noted. Our next speaker is Brad Kolop, followed by Pinky Langdon.
Good evening. In an optimal school administration, the superintendent is like a chief executive who, along with his cabinet, seek to manage the day-to-day functioning of a district. School board are elected members that are representative of respective constituents who work to establish and uphold rules, policy, and procedure. Both have an important role to play, and when working in concert with one another, a school district runs smoothly, effectively, and efficiently. However, imagine if a superintendent initiates or institutes some kind of policy or procedure under an emergency circumstance. Moreover, imagine this emergency policy overrides, conflicts, negates existing policy that has been adopted and put into place through representatives on the school board. Do you see a problem with this scenario? I do. This scenario is similar to what's happening in our state right now. Our chief executive in Springfield, declaring an emergency, has put into place mandates for masking, vaccination, and testing, while overriding and seemingly ignoring existing codes and laws put into place through our elected representation in Congress. Our governor renews these illegal mandates month after month, completely disregarding the legislative process and due process to his constituents. As our state constitution allows, these egregious actions have made their way to our judicial branch, where judges now are negating and putting a halt to the governor's overstepping authority. Most recently, on Friday, February 4th, Judge Grishaw in Springfield, in reference to these mandates and emergency rules, declared, quote, "This type of evil is exactly what law was intended to constrain," unquote. So in light of this most recent court ruling, I have 2 questions for the school board and superintendent. Question 1, are you going to continue to follow the illegal governor's mandates for vaccination, testing, and masking for students and staff? And question 2, if so, under whose authority? Your constituents will be waiting, watching, and listening for your reply and response. Thank you for your time.
So I have Pinky Langdon would speak next, followed by Maria Mendia.
Hi, don't forget I have a strong voice, so don't think I'm being aggressive or an angry black woman. I have a complaint against Rockford Public Schools. Several complaints have come into the NAACP, concerns of treatment, of management, of hiring of teachers of color. Ms. Farr is a 12-year employee of Rockford Public School District 205 at West Middle School as a paraprofessional. After completing her degree in 2021, she is now a special ed teacher hired back at West Middle School, learning the system as a teacher. Last week, Ms. Farr was informed by West administration that she would not be rehired due to using a sick day instead of a personal day. We have many questions about best practices to recruit, hire, and retain Black teachers. New teachers, mentoring programs, training and understanding, and using the ASAP. What is the status of the teachers from Guilford who is comfortably using the N-word? I came to you about that before. I guess it wasn't important enough because you never called me. Why was Miss Starlet not arrested and fired when she made that video at West Middle School where she pulled down her pants and was showing her buttocks? My great niece, who is a student at Auburn High School, came home with that video. Oh, this happened in December. 630-666-5438. Get at me. It was said at a board meeting that you wish there were better role models at home so that the students you could have better students. Well, to that I say we need to have better role models and our board and HR who can do a better job at vetting the staff and HR generalists who are in position to abuse, railroad these children who were born with 2 strikes. You receive several $1 million. You say you don't know what to do with it. Again, I gave you my phone number. I can help you out with that. Have a good day.
Thank you. Our last speaker this evening is Maria Mendia. There you go.
I'm Maria Mendia, a retired teacher from the Rockford district with 2 grandkids in the Rockford Public School. Since the pandemic, I've listened to information, questioned and researched the facts. I've been open to learn more about the virus and the vaccine through personal testimonies and found how the virus and vaccines affect the human body. My concerns have grown enough that I came to you tonight. As teachers, we encourage our students to be curious, ask questions, and learn more. I challenge each of you to keep that same standard with regard to the vaccine mandate. I challenge you to be curious enough to get all the facts from the CDC Vaccine Adverse Effects Reporting System, acronym VAERS, and not just accept what another governing body is telling you to mandate. I challenge each of you to question why too many young people are having heart attacks, blood clots, and long-term physical disabilities after getting the vaccine. The vaccine has not been proven safe. I challenge you to take time to learn more because the greater good is served at the expense of a few is said, but it's not a good argument when it's your child or your family member's child that is suffering or dying. I challenge each of you to explain what research you use to support your decision should you make the mistake to vote for the vaccine mandate. Each of you carries a big responsibility for the welfare of each child in this school district, but the parents know the health conditions of their child best. There is misleading information everywhere that show a need to be vaccinated, that the unvaccinated child spreads the virus. I challenge each of you to find the truth. The vaccine mandate is unconstitutional. Lastly, let the parents decide. They know their child's health best. They should choose whether the child gets the vaccine or not. Thank you.
Thank you. You can't, approach the board, sorry. We're now into board member comments. Are there any board member comments this evening? Ms. Muhammad?
Yes, I just want to say thank you to everybody from the community that took time out to provide your feedback tonight to us. And I also wanted to follow up and do my monthly shout outs that I've been doing. just highlighting the visits that I've been doing in the different schools here. As board members, as you all know, we are in charge of making a lot of monumental decisions that impact not only our staff, our teachers, and our students, but it's important that we have that connection in our buildings so that way we make sure that we are properly representing everybody, which is why I've been prioritizing this. So I want to shout out few schools again. I went to Nash Holt Early Childhood Center and met with Miss Wren. And I've also went to Barber School and met with Mr. Lopez. I've met with Mrs. Collins at Maria Montessori, as well as Mr. Schrank at Flynn Middle School and Mr. Carlson at Eisenhower Middle School. Thank you so much to all these principals for opening your doors to me. You all were very welcoming, very receptive to the conversations that I wanted to start about getting more parent and community engagement. And I especially want to highlight the conversations that I had with Mr. Lopez at Barber. He provided me with a lot of unique ideas that he's been incorporating with his staff in terms of the development and just trying to recruit more Latino educators and Spanish-speaking ones as well. Mrs. Collins gave me a tour, let me into her classrooms, and showed me the efforts that they've been putting forth with showing the students how they can do peer mediation. I think that that was super cool to see, and I would love to see in some way that duplicated in other schools as well. And lastly, Mr. Carlson, I appreciate you taking time out to take me into all of your multiple classrooms. It was really refreshing being able to interact with your students and just get good vibes from them. So again, I just want to thank all of these principals for opening their doors to me, and I hope that we can continue to talk about how we can work together in the future.
Mr. Siegel?
Thank you. This morning we had the opportunity to meet with some of our representation from downstate. Representative Maurice West and Dave Vella were able to join us for the legislative breakfast. I will give a little more in-depth report at future committee of the whole meeting, but this was a good leaping off opportunity for us. We haven't had these conversations with our legislators in a number of years. I thought we had a positive and productive conversation. There are obviously a lot of issues that affect our students, even ones that seem to be existing all outside of our walls. And our representatives are very engaged, working very hard, having the right conversations with the right people to try and start moving some of these things along. So I do want to thank our representation for being here. I want to thank the other board members who showed up. Ms. McCulloch, Ms. Pearson, and Ms. Mohammed were also there, as well as the superintendent, Earl Dotson Jr., and a host of other administration and their team. So thank you.
And Ms. Pearson?
Thank you. I just want to offer some feedback. I had an opportunity to visit a few schools. I had an opportunity to sit and speak with Principal Kuffler, had a good conversation with her, and I want to thank each of the principals for allowing me to visit. Ms. Solberg at McIntosh, this is her first year, I do believe, as being a principal. She has a very solid vision, and I appreciate her sharing that vision with me. And because I was in the neighborhood, I stopped by Lincoln on today and we received a tour. And I am I just want to show some appreciation to our teachers and our school administrators for all you do. It is not an easy task. There's great expectations of you. I understand that, and I understand that you can get, it can be very frustrating and exhausting. We are committed to serve our students, and we must do what it is necessary to make that happen. I've had some, and before I express my thought, my next thought, I don't want to not thank Mr. Dotson for being a part of, and his team for this legislative breakfast on today. I think it's just, it's nice to be nice, and it is always good to show appreciation. I also want to share with community members. I want you to know I've get an enormous amount of phone calls, and that's the life of a board member. I'm learning. And I'm just asking that you be very patient with me as I try to make a rule to return phone calls within 24 to 72 hours. That gives me about 3 days. To parents who have concerns about your children, make sure you know who your student's counselor is. Make sure that you've exhausted means of communication to the school, reaching out to the principal. You can take advantage of Let's Talk. You can email, and make sure that you have necessary information that will help me advocate for you. Be willing to be transparent in anything that may be going on with you to help me help you. It is difficult to advocate when one does not have all the information, and so I'm asking that of you to help me as I continue to advocate for you. So again, thanks to you all. I certainly appreciate it. I've enjoyed my journey as a school board member and look forward to continue on. Thank you.
All right, thank you, board members. Next on the agenda is the superintendent's report. Dr. Jarrett, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mrs. McCulloch. And I think there it is. We are going to be talking a little bit about the continued conversation about our district's measurement system to improve our schools, the system-wide framework. Remember, this is the system that is designed to ensure that our district office improves as well as all of our individual schools. Remember, this is grounded in our equity imperative that we do want to interrupt the predictability of student outcomes based on zip code. A good visual representation is if schools were rated on red, yellow, green, and blue, we want to go from having this level of variance to every neighborhood having blue or green schools. And our mechanism of doing that, we spend a lot of time talking about our general education K-12 schools, our neighborhood schools as they're often called, and we gave a very detailed example of what that looks like for an elementary school, and then in the board update, we talked about middle school and high school. Today we're going to focus in on early childhood and special program, or in charters, and then special programs will be our conversation. And the main highlight today is the different weighting systems we're using. You'll notice that 50% of our evaluation of a school will come from how they did on the school scorecard, and 50% will be on the standards of practice. When we today look at early childhood, you'll note that 25% is the scorecard and 75% of the standards. We'll walk you through that, a practice. And then the charters, because of the incredible amount of autonomy they are given, there are no standards of practice that we hold them accountable for, but we do 100% hold them accountable for their performance on the school scorecard. So here's what that would look like for early childhood. Again, 25% is the scorecard, 75% in standards. So this is what that would mean. You can see here that within that school scorecard are metrics for academic achievement or quality instruction, for early childhood appropriate, and then climate and culture is 25. So 75%, 25%. So if you imagine 4 points, 3 of the points would come from quality instruction, 1 of the point would climate and culture. This makes up 1/4 of the total score. 3/4 of the score would come from the standards of practice as it pertains to quality instruction, quality relationships, and strategic decisions. So again, we saw this 50-50 ratio with our K-12 schools. This would be 25-75 with early childhood. Here's an example of what of how that might compute. You can see an example, school A, B, C, and D. This is not actual data. These are hypothetical situations, and you can see examples of what it would look like of how a school would perform on the school scorecard, the standards of practice, and then an overall score that's an average of those two. Here are some tangible examples. You can see the first school here had a 3.4 out of 4 on the school scorecard, which is 25% of the score, a 3.6 on the standards of practice, and their overall score, you can see, would be an improved score. And you can go down the look and see whether someone ends up a 5-year, 4-year, or a 3-year school. 3-year schools need more frequent intervention and support. 5-year schools would have increasing autonomy and less frequent review. Charters are a much simpler equation. It's 100% how you do on the scorecard, and as we evaluate the charters, it's really a performance-based evaluation. Upcoming dates, we are going to be talking about special programs on the 22nd, which we are proposing a 75% scorecard, 25% standard of practice split. And then on March 1st, we are going to be talking about what does it look like to evaluate the performance of the district office. We have our first round of feedback from principals and assistant principals in our schools that evaluates how the services that we are providing to our schools. So this is a true mutual accountability system. Then you can see as we go through the remainder of the year, we will get to the point where we are finalizing the system-wide framework so that we can have our first year of populating an accountability dashboard in November of 22. So again, you will continue to see me here during the superintendent's update, and we will also continue to utilize the board update over the next 6 months to continue to finalize this. Thank you.
Are there any questions for the superintendent on that presentation? Okay, thank you. We're now on to action items that proceeded through first the governance committee. The first one is there a motion and a second to approve item 6A, which is the amendment to the intergovernmental agreement for the city police services.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? This was covered at committee of the whole, but if there's any further questions before we vote? Seeing none, I'll ask the coordinator to call the roll.
Ms. Pearson?
Yes.
Mr. Rollins?
Yes.
Ms. Mohammed?
Yes.
Mrs. McCulloch?
Yes.
Mr. Siegel?
Yes.
Mr. Connor?
Yes.
The motion passes with 6 yeses, 1 absent.
I have no follow-up items from the governance committee, so we'll proceed to the consent portion of our meeting, which includes items previewed by the board committee chairs during the committee of the whole. Item 7 of the consent would be payroll, accounts payable, purchase orders, air travel, fiscal year 2022 second quarter treasurer's report, the Learning Partners additional funds, the Kronos time clock hardware refresh. Items 8A, Tier 1 PDSA, the Zandu grades 2 through 3 resource, and B, the Kaplan LLC SAT prep. Item 9, the meeting minutes from the special board meeting of 125 and the Freedom of Information log. Is there a motion and a second to approve those consent items?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Okay. Anybody have anything they need to pull or any questions answered? Okay. Seeing that there are no consent items to be pulled, we'll call the roll on the approval of all the items under 7, 8, and 9.
Mr. Rollins?
Yes.
Ms. Mohammed?
Yes.
Mrs. McCulloch?
Yes.
Mr. Siegel?
Yes.
Mr. Connor?
Yes.
Ms. Pearson?
Yes.
The motion passes with 6 yeses, 1 absent.
Thank you. We're now on to the closed session consent agenda items. These include 10A, the appointment of Jeff Sherman as a 12-month director of transportation, B, the notice to remedy for Jennifer Baxell, and C, the HR organizational report and addendum. We also have the student discipline, GDM 4450, the expulsion is held in abeyance contingent upon an expulsion and abeyance agreement for the remainder of the 2021-2022 school year. The EIAs, 1095, 8407, 8421, 8427. Is there a motion and second to approve those closed session consent items?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Are there any closed session consent items board members wish to have pulled for separate consideration? Seeing none, I'll ask the coordinator to call the roll on all the items in 10, 11, and 12.
Ms. Mohammed?
Yes.
Mrs. McCulloch?
Yes.
Mr. Siegel?
Yes.
Mr. Connor?
Yes.
Ms. Pearson?
Yes.
Mr. Rollins?
Yes.
The motion passes with 6 yeses, 1 absent.
Thank you. Well, we're on to other business, new business agenda recommendations. Are there any comments or agenda recommendations by the board? Despite starting 15 minutes late, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Same sign. Thank you. And we're done in 30 minutes. Wow. And thank you again to everybody who attended.